If you've ever tried center axis relock because of John Wick or Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you realize it wasn't that great, make sure you like and comment. The comment section is utterly and completely out of my control. Police yourselves. Good luck, gentlemen. This particular video is brought to you by SimpliSafe, awesome little home security company. Definitely check them out. I have a link right below. Gentlemen, ladies, everybody, the biggest support of the channel has always been, this year, Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. They have parts and optics and everything for very cheap. Of course, you have to buy it. It is 99 cents for the first month. You will save a whole lot of money doing it. I wouldn't recommend it unless I actually believed in it. Definitely get it down there through the link. Check it out. If you're looking for ammunition, we have LAX ammunition, discount code GRAND. Check it out. Ladies, gentlemen, and my, of course, always forgotten and always overlooked Striker crews, stay frosty, gentlemen. Welcome to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting handgun, the FN-Five-seveN. Now, the FN-Five-seveN is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and it's taken me a lot of time to do it for a variety of reasons. One, the ammunition is very expensive. So, full disclosure, as we always do with everything, this handgun was not given to me by anybody. It was purchased by me for $1,200. Quite expensive. Ammo was expensive. It's taken me a while. I've done around 4,000 rounds on 5.7s. About 1,500 of them on a older 5.7 model, one of my buddies, and then the other 2.5K on this particular model, which is a Mark II. I'm going to do my best to stay impartial, despite the fact that I paid a lot of money for it. I'm not going to let that influence my decision. Do my best as I always do. So with those things in mind, we're going to get into it. Now, before we get into it, I want to do a quick little history lesson. Now, I'm not Forgotten Weapons. I'm not Gung Jesus. I would love to be, but I just don't have the hair or the weird facial hair to pull it off. So we're going to do an abbreviated version. Suffice it to say that the FN-Five-seven was developed after the P90 to utilize the excellent 5.7 by 28 cartridge. There were some changes made to the 5.7 cartridge prior to it being able to be used in this particular handgun, specifically a shorter overall length to more easily fit in a magazine so it could be gripped and not be like super girthy, thick with 3/4 grip. Otherwise, that wouldn't work. Anyhow, you then have this handgun produced mid-90s, FN-Five-seven, capital F, capital N, FN. Very good FN. We saw that from a mile away. This is a very interesting handgun. It's fairly lightweight at about 1.3 pounds. Now, the Glock 17 is a little bit heavier, just a smidge over 1.3 pounds, not this particular one, but a stock Glock 17. So that is definitely lightweight, especially given the size of this gun and how many rounds it carries. Specifically, the standard magazine capacity is 20 with 30 rounders, easily bought and very reliable. That extends a teeny bit more below this particular handgun. This is very interesting. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this handgun. We're going to go, as we usually do, from nose to butt, and we're going to talk about this and explain what is good and what is bad. Now, in the past, I've read a lot of reviews, watched a lot of reviews on this handgun, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I feel like either they're trying to justify the FN-Five-seven like too hard, like especially the Wikipedia article. It's very cringe. It's probably me, and I'm sure the guy who actually wrote it is actually very nice, but I'm just not down with the way he described the Five-seven. And other reviews just seem to gloss over everything. So we're going to go in depth, and we're going to talk about what really matters on this, which is what does it feel like to LARP and shoot with this and do all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. Starting from the barrel. The barrel is a 4.8-inch cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel. Chrome lining, awesome. Has been battle proven, battle tested to be a excellent interior lining on the barrel. Cold hammer forged is awesome. What a great way, just what a great barrel to have on this particular handgun. Service life on these particular barrels are around 20K plus. The barrels are also very accurate. I think they're probably more accurate to you. Now, based on the way the pistol is kind of designed, it might not get the greatest accuracy from you for a variety of reasons, but I have no doubt that the barrel itself is incredibly accurate. No qualms when it comes to that. Moving from the barrel, let's talk a little bit about the slide and everything. So first off, the slide is steel with polymer encased, and that goes for much of the pistol. Polymer is used quite a bit, but there are actual steel, like the slide is all steel. The most insane thing I saw about that was whoever wrote that Wikipedia article was like trying to justify polymer being so thickly applied all around this entire gun. And he said that the polymer was applied to reduce reflection. That's insane. There are plenty of different coatings on weapons that reduce reflection without the need of adding a shit ton of polymer. But in any case, it is definitely lightweight. It is fine. It is very odd looking when you first look at the 5.7. That's the first thing a lot of people notice is how polymer-y it is. Now the Glock, of course, has polymer lower, and now this particular one is shiny because that's the finish they use on the Terran Tactical Combat Masters. But the slide, of course, is metal compared to the 5.7 where you have that polymer case in it. It just looks a little bit different. Now the front, the Mark II variant of the FN 5.7 has serrations. These serrations are at the forward portion of it, which are lacking on older models. I think they are excellent. I like having forward serrations on my handgun for manipulation and that type of thing. Is it LARPy? No, I think it's actually practical and necessary, but if you don't like them, don't use them. But in any case, I think it's better to have them and not need them to need them and not have them. Moving from the serrations, which are also included on the rear, and at the rear, another thing is they have a little notch that allow you to kind of hook your hands onto them if you like to do manipulations from the back. From there, we have the sights. So the sights are interesting for a variety of reasons. They're very tall, and that's good because they work with a suppressor when you have a threaded barrel. But we're gonna have to go kind of deep into the 5.7 here. The rear sights are adjustable, so sights are fine, but they're very tall. Even, you know, just talking about normal sights, if the slide were lower, they're very tall. So the problem is that, yeah, if you go for slide height, like actual slide height, the slides are about the same height in actuality. But what you have to look at with the 5.7, and what a lot of people seem to gloss over, is how low you have to grip the 5.7. So your grip is very low. So why this matters is on something like the Glock 17, and I know I seem like I'm on Glock's dick a lot, but honestly, this goes for the Glock 17, the M&P, the CZ75, the Browning High Power, the 1911. They have a fairly high tang that allow you to get a very high grip on that. This is good for several reasons. One, this allows you to control recoil better because every time that reciprocating mass on the slide moves, I'm higher up on it, and because of physics and science and shit, you're able to keep that weapon more on target. Another thing is that this allows you to, based on your hand placement, put it at an easy position to make your shots and that type of thing. The higher it is, the kind of lower you have to go, and the kind of the weirder it is and the weirder it feels to shoot. So when you're shooting like a handgun with a high red dot, like a handgun with like a Delta Point Pro on it, you kind of have to drop your grip a little bit so you can see through that optic. And that definitely comes into play here. Because your grip is so low on the gun, and because you have so much height here on the frame, and then again on the slide, and then again on the heights, you're like, you really have to lower the weapon down compared to a typical handgun. Now, a lot of people would say, well, maybe they did it for a reason. Well, you might say that, except that pretty much every modern service weapon has had a pretty high tang with a low slide to control recoil and have a kind of easier ergonomics when it comes to bringing the gun on the target. So this is definitely an odd design choice. I am not a fan of where you grip the weapon. I think that there could have been some design changes to allow me to grip a little bit higher. A little bit higher of a grip would have made that, let me try to finagle that, would have made that much more comfortable to shoot through and would have made this a much more pleasurable weapon from that alone. So I'm sad that they didn't do that. I'll get over it, maybe, with time. But another thing is that because your hand is low, you have science and shit is not on your side when this thing is firing. You have all that mass moving above your hand. And I know the FN 5.7 is a light handgun, but even still, why not put everything to your advantage when it comes to a handgun firing such a light recoiling caliber? Just my thoughts on that particular issue. All right, moving from there, we have our serial number on the side right there. We have a pick rail on the bottom. I have a Surefire X300U on this particular handgun. phenomenal. I love having, you know, my weapon lights on there, boop, boop, boop. So you always, there are a variety of reasons to put a weapon light on there. In any case, you have the option to do so with the 5.7, much like many other modern service pistols. Moving up from there, we have, our takedown lever. So the takedown on the FN 5.7 is very simple. So you pull back a little bit, and then you can pop it off, and the whole slide comes off. Very simple compared to like something like the Glock, where you have to depress, pull it back slightly, and then get it moving. Fairly quick at it because I've done it a lot, but I find the FN to be much more intuitive. I think that the designers at FN did a good job with their takedown lever. Moving back from there, we have the oddest, not the oddest, I feel like I'm using that word to describe the FN 5.7 a lot, and it's definitely applicable, but a very odd design choice on the FN 5.7, which is the safety. The safety, compared to every other modern service pistol, which typically have their safety toward the rear, the FN 5.7 has theirs up front, about centered on the trigger. Now, the reason that so many modern handguns have their safeties at the rear is because when you go to draw your weapon, your hand comes down, and as you draw it up, you can simply sweep that up. You can sweep that safety off with your firing hand, and then you begin firing. Now, with the FN 5.7, what you have to do is you can do one of two things. You can either sweep it down with your support hand as you go to grasp the weapon. So you draw and then sweep, which is kind of odd. Or conversely, you draw and then use your trigger finger and you bring your finger into the trigger guard. In either case, it's a very odd movement. I know it's manual of arms, and people are gonna say, oh, it's manual of arms, you're being a bitch about it. But at the same time, unless it offers any obvious advantage over a design typically used by everyone else, why do it? I'm all for innovation when it makes sense. In the case of the 5.7, I find it to be an odd, perhaps I would say wrong design choice. I think it would be better served being to the rear, be easier to use, and just in better overall design. But this is what the 5.7 has, and this is what we deal with. So typically what I do is I rock support side thumb, and as I'm coming up, I sweep it down and I fire. It's odd, and once I fire it, I usually keep it off until I sweep it back on, and then I holster. Odd choice in any case. I don't like it. Anyhow, when it's on, you have a little red dot right there that shows that it's on. We have a loaded chamber indicator up here. So when the weapon is loaded, this little pin will protrude just a small amount, allow you to feel it with your finger, through gloves as well. If you don't want to do a press check on this particular weapon, feel in there. The ejection port, speaking of press checks, is quite large, and this is large to allow for the ejection of a live round of 5.7, as it is a fairly large cartridge, or not large, but long. Now, speaking of the 5.7 cartridge, if you've never seen one before, might as well pop one out. This is a 5.7 cartridge, right? So, as you can see here, it is a necked cartridge. Let's compare that to a 9mm. We have a 9mm right there. So this particular 9mm is a 115 grain. This particular one is, of course, 30 grain. The FN 5.7, the 5.7 by 28 is a very interesting round. So it's necked. Now, I've seen a lot of people, certain personalities state that this is a rifle round. This is not a rifle round. This is a necked pistol round. Necked pistol rounds are not specifically a new thing. In fact, many countries have used necked pistol rounds for a very long time. For example, the TT-33 from Russia, the CZ-52, all use necked pistol rounds. Now, of course, this one is a little bit different with a different bullet shape that it causes it to have some very excellent ballistics. So what I'll say on the 5.7 is I know there's a lot of argument about the effectiveness of the 5.7 or the ineffectiveness of it, or, you know, this country uses it or this drug cartel uses it or doesn't use it, or it sucks or it doesn't suck. In my opinion, the 5.7 is an excellent cartridge. I find handgun cartridges to be overall lacking in terminal effectiveness, and I'm just going to say that I find the 5.7 to be a superior caliber when it comes to terminal effectiveness compared to your normal 9mm rounds currently on the market. 5.7, awesome round. What is also awesome is that the standard capacity magazine for the 5.7 is a 20 rounder. That is super sick. A 5.7, fairly light recoiling cartridge. This is definitely a cool package when it comes to that. So 5.7, just to kind of get rid of that, good caliber in my opinion. All right, moving back from there, we have the slide release. So the slide release is in a great position in my opinion. It's at a perfect point to release with my thumb, so when you're doing reloads, bang, 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 go dry, next magazine in. It's very easy to load, drop. All that kind of stuff. I find it excellent. So I have no complaints when it comes to the slide release on the FN5-seven. Good on them there. The magazine release is large, it protrudes, easy to hit, it is reversible. I was worried that much like the 1911, due to kind of the length of the grip, or due to the width of the grip right here, that I wasn't going to be able to actuate it with my thumb. I kind of have medium-sized man hands. I find that it's not so bad. I'm able to release it with my typical firing grip, but some people with smaller hands may have a problem, just as a quick note for you guys. Okay, another thing right here is grip. So the FN5-seven is very aggressively, the FN5-seven has very aggressive grips, so much so that if you have little bitch hands, your hands are going to get very, very sore firing this. Even after firing, 1,000 rounds in a day, my hands get very sore firing this. And that is true of many other modern weapons that have stippling on them, such as this Combat Master from Taran Tactical. But compared to those, the grips on the FN5-seven are fairly sharp comparatively, and because of that, I find that they wear into the hands a little bit quicker. Something to be aware of. Now, here's the thing I really like about the FN5-seven, and that is the grip angle. So if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of the grip angle on the Browning High Power, the 1911. I find it very easy to point and shoot with those grip angles. The 5-7 has that almost exact same grip angle. That for me makes it very easy to point and shoot, even despite the tallness of everything that I talked about earlier. So the couple changes, this could be a really phenomenal firearm in my opinion, but the grip angle is very good. I'm a big fan of it. A problem with a lot of modern service pistols is when you're firing them, that your thumb might ride on the slide release. That happens to me a lot with the Glock. With a high thumb grip, I end up releasing the slide all the time, so I don't go to slide lock when I shoot. There are, of course, fixes for that, like the Cogworks slide release, but with the 5-7, the slide release is placed in such a way that I don't end up actuating it when I'm firing. Again, a good design choice when it comes to that. Okay, so we've avoided it enough. It is time to ghost that trigger. So, the thing about the 5-7 is that it does have a magazine disconnect. That means that you have to have the magazine in, otherwise the weapon will not fire. That is something that I have never been a fan of. The Browning High Power also has that feature, as do several other firearms. I don't find it very useful. I'm sure it's been used by some law enforcement guy or something when his weapon is taken, pop in the magazine so he didn't get killed. So I'm sure there are uses for it, but I just don't prefer it in general. All right. Let's go ahead and let's get into this. So the trigger on the 5-7 is very wide. That helps distribute a lot of that force. It makes for a cleaner feeling trigger comparatively. So let's go ahead and let's ghost this trigger. It is single action. The trigger, the hammer is fully enclosed. So let's try that up. So we have about 4 millimeters of mushiness right here. Hit our first wall. Fairly crisp break at around 6 pounds. Let's go ahead and try that one more time. Okay, feeling that again. Okay, 4 millimeters of travel, about 6 pounds. All right, feels like a nice little crisp carrot getting broken. Compare that to a Glock, and this is a very nice Glock, by the way. Very mushy in comparison. Light, but mushy compared to the 5-7, a very military feeling crisp trigger, which I can definitely appreciate. Let's go ahead and let's feel the reset on this particular handgun. If you don't know, the reset is how far I have to let the trigger forward before it resets, and I can then pull it again to fire another round. If I don't reset it all the way, I'm gonna get mush, I'm gonna get nothing like this right here. All right. All right, let's go ahead and let's reset this trigger. Okay, moving forward, 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 forward. There's my click, reset. Try that again. Forward, forward, forward. About 3 millimeters, 4, click. All right, it is kind of a long reset comparatively. Yeah, so the FN5-7 has kind of a longer reset compared to a lot of your standard service weapons out there. Because of that, you do have to bring your finger a little bit forward every time you want to fire that weapon. Because of that, your firing cadence, unless you have a lot of training on this particular handgun, is going to be a little bit slower. And I've definitely found that to be the case, that my split times are slower compared with guns I'm more familiar with, of course, and also guns with lighter, better triggers, even guns I'm not familiar with. So as far as the trigger goes, definitely adequate as a military law enforcement trigger. No qualms there. Definitely a little bit lacking compared to some of the modern ones, although I will say that the break is phenomenal. So I can definitely give that to FN, especially with a lot of these polymer weapons. You can have some really crappy brakes, so they actually did a very good job there. Now, as far as how am I storing this, so typically I do store fully loaded, one in the chamber. Well, I use a 30-round mag, plus one in the chamber, 31 rounds. Safety on is how I typically run this. I try to run the safeties on weapons if they have them, use them as they were designed. And big thing is, of course, security, right? Home security. You guys know that this video is sponsored by SimpliSafe. I've been using SimpliSafe far before they ever contacted me. So when it comes to them, why do I like them? So there's a lot of home security companies out there, of course, but I like SimpliSafe because I feel that they're more aligned with the typical firearm owner in the fact that you can piecemeal buy what you need and kind of upgrade as necessary. Of course, you have to do all the installation yourself. But for my typical E4 is balling on a budget, I'm looking out for you guys. I was an E4 once. It really helps. And it also allows me to add additional layers of security, something like a camera system inside my gun room, motion sensors inside my gun room with alerts for that, door sensors, window brake sensors, all that kind of stuff I can add as necessary as I have the funds. I'm able to at least get something if I don't have a whole lot of funds to build up, have an entire home security system put in there in the first place. So for that reason that I like them, I've harped on it enough. Highly recommended SimpliSafe. If you don't know where to go for that, link right below. Check them out. Recommend them because I use them personally. So that's enough of that. Now that we've talked about safety and all that kind of stuff, because it does matter as I point the gun at you guys, what does it feel like to shoot the FN Five-seven? It is so odd and so weird to shoot for a variety of reasons, but the biggest reason is that necked cartridge, the 5.7, just produces a whole lot of flash and a whole lot of noise. Like the first time you fire, you're like, that's pretty loud actually compared to like a 9mm. And that's for a variety of reasons. You have a supersonic cartridge, you have a lot of powder, neck cartridge, high pressure, all that kind of stuff. Makes for a very loud report, especially if you're firing this at night compared to like a 9mm. You're gonna find that you have a lot more flash, and that can be detrimental in certain situations. So again, is the FN right for you? There are situations where it could or it could not be. So when you fire it, you have all that noise and all of that flash, but you don't have a whole lot of recoil. It's a very interesting system. So if you guys know, I've been a huge fan of the recoil impulse from the 1911. I find it very pleasing. I've often described it as gentle but strong, right? So you have as I've often described it, as gentle but strong. So as a long, slow impulse, but it's strong, right? So you're feeling that, but it's coming over a long period of time, so it allows you to control it fairly well. I would describe the FN Five-seven as the exact opposite of that. It is snappy but weak. So when you fire it, that slide snaps right back. It's a quick action, it's a quick speed with everything, but you don't get a whole lot of recoil from it. But that snap does cause a little bit of muzzle flip. I've seen people say it has, literally zero muzzle flip. And maybe if you crisscross it and get into it and lock out your arms and fire it, it is. But if you're doing any type of modern shooting on the move where you have some type of bend in your elbows, and if you don't know about modern shooting on the move and that type of stuff, I'd highly recommend you take a look at Tony Cowden's and Cogworks classes and Bear Solutions classes to learn that shit, because it definitely matters. You can definitely park and blow pretty well just like everybody else, but if you want to move and shoot, you need to do some things different. But in any case, if you're moving and shooting, you do get a little bit of flip. So it's not like everybody's saying that you're like, there's zero muzzle flip. It is, I would say, maybe about 2/3 the typical recoil impulse that you get from a 9mm. But it is definitely very controllable. But again, due to a couple odd things, such as a high slide, high sights, you are kind of slowed down a little bit. If you had ergonomics closer to a Glock firing a 5.7, you could really shred with this particular gun. So it is interesting. And again, the safety slows me down and a couple other things. It's just not quite there. The FN Five-seven is not quite there for me. It is very close in my opinion. But I still think that it's a good handgun. I think that for a lot of people, it definitely works. Now, there are some problems with the FN5-7, namely holsters. So there aren't a whole lot of holsters available for the 5.7 from normal makers. So if you know, for duty use, I prefer Safariland ALS holsters. There's not, to my knowledge, a Safariland ALS holster available for the FN5.7. There are SLS holsters, but I don't prefer those, but you can find those out there. Be careful, older FNs fit certain holsters and newer FNs can't fit those older holsters, so make sure you look out for that. Now in my case, I'm using two different holsters for my video. So the first one I use is from Kydex Holsters NLD. This one is for a FN5.7 with a light body. It is very well made. It is a level 1 holster. It means that the retention is simply the retention from the Kydex. Well made, very clean lines. I definitely like what they made. Now this one is on a QLS mount that allows me to change it out as necessary, and also has a thigh strap from T-Rex Arms on a Safariland mid-ride drop leg. Now, I definitely recommend the thigh strap from T-Rex Arms if you use a mid-ride, otherwise the holster can kind of flip out. Now, from there, I also have another one. This is A&R Design. This one is for my FN5.7 when I don't have a light on it, which I run a large amount of the time. This one, of course, is similarly made, very cleanly, very well made, no qualms. I definitely love both of them. I think they're both about the same quality level. This one is also on a QLS, so I can easily swap it as necessary. I would highly recommend either of those companies. Both are run by great guys and just great people. So either is absolutely going to work. When it comes to concealed carry, there are some options out there. But again, your decision to get this handgun, you should heavily look into what holster you're going to be using before you purchase it. Besides that, yeah, can you practice enough is the biggest thing. So ammo is expensive, around between 39 to 50 cents plus per round, compared to 17 to 19 cents per round for a 9mm when you need to practice. So if you can practice with the 5.7 as much as you can with the 9mm, then I'd highly recommend it. If you can't, get the 9mm. If you can, the 5.7 is definitely a great handgun. Again, I don't think it's quite there as far as ergonomics are concerned, but the 5.7 is a very potent round when it comes to handgun calibers and will serve you well. So, is it for you? Honestly, I think a lot of people focus on the gun when they should be focusing on the training. If you have this gun, as cool as it looks, as well as it works, you're still going to have issues if you don't train with it. And I've mentioned it before, Cogworks, Bear Solutions, Esoteric, Tony Cowden, Pat McNamara, so many great guys out there, Darcy. Check them out, get training from these guys, and learn how to actually use these tools, because they are just that, tools. You're ultimately what's in charge of them. If you can't run them efficiently, then they're going to be nothing for you. So get out there and get training. Ladies and gentlemen, Striker Crews, thank you for watching. You guys know I appreciate you. Stay looking cool, and of course, I've got nothing else for you. All right, final note for you guys. Drink water. I know I've said it before, but I'd highly recommend to make sure you keep your water intake at a good level. You don't get enough water from drinking a glass of water with every meal, unless you're eating like 10,000 meals a day. But for real though, look online and drink a lot more water. Your pee should be fairly clear to kind of a lemonade color. Don't drink too much, because you can die from that as well. It is a balance, but drink enough water to keep hydrated. Your body will work better, you'll feel better, and you'll be able to work out harder and think. Everything's just gonna work better. Drink water. If you have gotten this far, you are of course my ultra fans. So my ultra fans out there, I love you guys. If you guys really want to support me all the way, Patreon. All that money goes directly into production costs, cameras, lenses, memory cards, upgrades, all that kind of stuff to ensure that I can continue to produce excellent content, because I do break this equipment all the time. The range is rough. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate you guys. Take care.